in our Open HPI course, Cyber Threats by Malware. Now we want to introduce rootkits and backdoors. Imagine your system has what is called a backdoor. And such a backdoor makes it possible that an attacker can gain access to your computer, can work on your computer, can see the data, can start programs, can do anything. Problem is, backdoor means that the owner of the system is not aware that there is someone else who can also work on his computer and can see all things that are happened. So if an attacker with administrator rights could use a backdoor to remotely control your computer, then he could do anything. He could install malware, he could steal personal data, he could deactivate systems, for example, the malware, antivirus software. The attacker could record a tap, keystroke, and others. So backdoors are really a very dangerous thing, in particular when people are not aware that there is a backdoor on their computer. And if the cyber attacker can use this backdoor with administrator rights, with the highest right, with the highest authority to do things, then he can completely reorganize reorganize the system and do all things that can be done on such a system. The problem with such backdoors is that the antivirus programs, they cannot detect such a backdoor. So with the backdoor, the name says it, the attacker can access into your system and can, like you, do all things you can do if you have no administrator rights and he has administrator rights, then he can do even more than you. Rootkit. What is a rootkit? The word is a composite of root, and this is typically a sign for the administrator rights, and kit. This is a software component, to develop any tool. So such rootkits is software that could grant administrator access for a victim system, for an attacker, or for an unauthorized user. What is required? Required is that on the target system a rootkit is installed to work. By means such a rootkit, a software, the attacker can get access to the system. Of course, such rootkits are designed in a way that they are hidden and that they are not detectable by the system components, by the system owner. They could contain tools that allow cyber criminals to perform actions as administrator, to disable security components, to install backdoors to the system or others. So this is a key component to do such things on a computer if the attacker is possible to place such a rootkit on your computer and can do this. Speaking about backdoors, we already did this. This is described by a method for secretly gain access to a system to bypass security measures. This is important, dangerous in the system. So the antivirus scanner or the firewall systems, they are not able to detect this, and the user of such a backdoor, the cyber attacker, can gain higher privileges, for example, root privileges. By means such a rootkit, and if the backdoor in the beginning only it's allowing to the attacker to get access to the system, by means of the rootkit, the attacker also can gain root privileges, the highest privilege to interact with the system. Backdoors can be created through different methods. for example, by exploiting program errors, bugs or vulnerabilities in the system. Attacker checks what kind of systems are running, checks what's known about the vulnerabilities, and then can exploit to misuse these vulnerabilities to create a backdoor, for example. It can also be done intentionally, such a backdoor, to install such a backdoor, for example, to help troubleshooting by the administrators to the system users. Such backdoors can be installed by malware, for example, such as a Trojan or a worm. To have a better understanding for such rootkit and backdoor, here is an example, the Sony rootkit from 2005. Sony Extended Copy Protection Rootkit. This was a software tool that was developed by Sony, and the idea was to prevent audio CDs from being copied. It was in the beginning where with this new digital technology, also music and movies are distributed over the internet, and the seller, Sony, want to make sure that if the people have buy the CD, that's not possible to copy the movies or the songs on a computer and then later on distribute it over the internet. And the idea of the functionality of that Sony rootkit was, when inserting an audio CD, the consumer had to agree to a license. This was shown to him. But in the background, secretly, it was also installed a rootkit. And the idea and the functionality of this rootkit was to prevent that any copy software from a blacklist of copy programs can get access to the compact disk drive. So the rootkit was able to check when a program wants to get access to the CD drive, whether it is a copy program, and then the rootkit prevents that the program can get access to the drive. This rootkit also hides all files that contains here this sys string. Which contain the sys string in their name from antivirus software and malware scanner, because they like to prevent that this software was detected by the antivirus malware and by the scanners. The big problem was also the scanners where it hides also real malware before being detected by the antivirus scanners and software. So there were some programming errors in this rootkit, and this led to a system crash and led to data loss. And this was in this way people become aware of this. It was not an attack by a cyber criminal. It was using the methods of cyber criminals by a company to do something what is acceptable to prevent copying, but in this way, and in particular because it was done in not in a correct way due to the programming errors, a huge number of computers, 22 million, were infected, including also military systems, because all people that want to see or want to run such an audio CD on their computer, they got infected because they have to agree to the license. This was a visible part, and secretly behind there was a rootkit installed to prevent this copying. What are protective measures against rootkits and backdoors? Use your computer only with an account that does not have administrator rights. Even it's your own laptop, and even if you have administrator rights on that laptop, for the daily work you should establish another account without such administrator rights. Because then some things are not possible from that account, so it is much more difficult for the attacker to get administrator rights if they can only access accounts that do not have this administrator rights. Another protective measure is, this is a very general protective measure, is that you should carefully check and install genuine software. Look what kind of software, look what kind of apps you install on your smartphone. Take it from secret sources like the official app stores of the Android or the Apple systems, because there are careful security checks. There are many other app stores, and there it's not clear whether the software you can take from there is carefully checked. Then regularly you should install security and software updates. In several places we already discussed that software updates are typically designed when a vulnerability is detected in that software. Then the vendor tries to repair it so that this vulnerability cannot be exploited, cannot be misused by the attacker. And then also this is important, and particularly with the Internet of Things, smart devices, you should change all default passwords. Also in laptops and other things, you have such default username password combination. This is for the start to work with the system. Then one has to configure it, and definitely one has to close all the default accounts. About more protective measure we will discuss at the end of the week, when we have considered more types of malware.